Hi guys, today I will be going over organic chemistry nomenclature examples. Hopefully you guys have some previous knowledge about organic chemistry. You know that alkanes are compounds with single bonds, alkenes are compounds with double bonds, and alkynes are compounds with triple bonds. In this tutorial video, we will be going over all three types of compounds and how to name them. So our first example is of an alkane compound, and we know that it's an alkane compound because there are all single bonds. There's no triple bonds or double bonds. Okay, so the first thing I like to do in naming organic chemistry is always finding the parent strand or the longest strand in the compound. And in this example, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The longest strand would be 8. And just notice that we have a branch here, but we'll get to that in a second. So now that we know that the longest strand is 8, we can take the prefix of 8, which is oct, and add ane to it to get octane. So now that we know that our longest strand is called octane, we can deal with this branch here. Now, when naming branches, we know that they usually end, or they will end in YL. And since there's only one carbon here, and we know that the prefix for 1 when dealing with organic chemistry is meth, we will call this methyl. Now, it isn't just enough to name it methyl. We have to also include where it is in this long strand. Now, when it comes to numbering a strand, we know that you always want to number it so that the branch has the lowest number. So, in this example, we would want to start numbering from this side. We'd number that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the location of our methyl is at 3. So overall, the name of this example would be 3-methyl octane. Okay, so on to our second example. In our second example, we notice that there's only single bonds, so we know that this is also an alkane compound. So as I said, we'll go ahead and find the longest strand. The longest strand is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the longest strand is 6. We take the prefix for 6, which is hex, and we add ane, so we get hexane. Now we have a branch here that we don't want to forget about. Okay, and you can see here we have 2 carbons, and we know it's going to end in YL. We have 2 carbons, and the prefix for 2 is F. So we'll go ahead and write F. And we have ethyl. Now, of course, like we did the last example, we must name, or rather identify, where this branch occurs on the strand. And like I mentioned before, we want to number the strand so the branch has the lowest number. So in this example, we would start from the left. We'd number this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It occurs on our 3rd carbon here. So we would call this overall 3-ethyl hexane. Hopefully you're getting the hang of it so far. Okay, another example we have here, and this is another alkane compound because once again we only have single bonds. Let's see, that looks kind of, there we go. So let's go ahead and find our longest strand. which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so our longest strand will be 7. And we know that the prefix for 7 is hept. And of course, it's going to end in ane, so we'll call that heptane. Okay, now in this example, we have 2 branches. We have one branch right here and one branch right here. Okay, so like I said before, want to number it so that the branches have the lowest numbers possible. So we'll start numbering from the left. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put it up here. 5, 6, 7. We have one branch that occurs at the 3rd carbon, and that one only has 1 carbon, so our prefix for 1 is meth. We know it's going to end in YL, so we call this methyl. Now we have another branch that comes down here, and it has 2 carbons, and we know that the prefix for 2 is eth, so we call this one ethyl. We know this one occurs at the 3rd carbon, so we'll call this 3-methyl, and this one will be 4-ethyl. Now, when we come to put the whole name together, we want to put the branches' names in alphabetical order. So even though our ethyl comes after methyl because it's at the 4th carbon, we're going to put it before methyl because E comes before M in the alphabet. So the correct naming for this compound would be 4-ethyl 3-methyl heptane. Okay. Now to our next example. Finally we're at a compound that has a double bond, and we know compounds that have double bonds are called alkenes. Now, just like the alkanes, you're going to want to find the longest strand, and since there's no branches, we know that the longest strand is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So our prefix for 5 is pent, and instead of ending in ane, we're going to end in ene. So this will be called pentene. Now, we can't leave it at that because we have a double bond. And if someone were to draw pentene, they would have to know where the double bond is. Because the double bond could be here, there, or there. So to let a scientist or somebody or a chemist, to let somebody know where the double bond is, we must put a number. And like our branches, we always want to number a chain to where our bond has the lowest number. So here we would name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our double bond would be at 1, so we just call this 1-pentene, and that is the name of that compound. Our next example is also an alkene compound. We know that from the double bond that is shown right there. Just like our other examples, you always want to start off in naming the longest compound, which would be in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be 5. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is also possible, but I always find it easier just to go straight across. So our prefix for 5 is pent, and go ahead and write that, pent. And it's going to end in ene because it's an alkene. Now we have a branch up here that we have to look at. And as I told you, we always want a number going from to make our bond and our branches have the lowest number. Now in this case, we could start from here or here. The question is whether the double bond should have the lowest number or the branch. From what I've learned, we should make this double bond have the lowest number. So we'll start from this side instead of the right. So numbering across would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And our double bond would be at 1, so we can go ahead and put 1. You know, you always have to label your double bond to let chemists know where the double bond is in an alkene compound. Here, our branch, which is methyl, we know this from previous examples, and because there's one carbon and the prefix for 1 is meth, and we know that our branch will end in YL, so it's methyl. It occurs at 4. So this example would be named 4-methyl 1-pentene. Okay. Now to our last example. Our last example is an alkyne. We know this from the triple bond that occurs right here. Okay. So of course, let's find our longest strand, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The prefix for 6 is hex, so we can go ahead and write hex. And instead of ane or ene, it's going to end in ine because it's an alkyne. And we have a branch right here that we must also name, and we need to pay attention to our double bond. Our triple bond, I'm sorry. So we'll go ahead and name so that the triple bond has the lowest number. So that means we need to start naming from the right. Making this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would mean our triple bond is at 2. So we can go ahead and label that 2-hexyne. And our branch, which we know is methyl from the previous example, we can label at 5. So it would be 5-methyl. So the overall name for this compound would be 5-methyl 2-hexyne. I'm sorry. Okay, now this is just for this is just figuratively speaking. If we were to say there was another branch that occurred right here, let's just say this was also methyl. If we had a branch that would occur right here, what would we do since we would have 2 branches at the same carbon? Well, in this case, we would just call it 5-dimethyl 2-hexane. Notice the di for 2, and that's the same for tri, and so on. Thank you for watching the organic chemistry nomenclature examples.
Let's go.